Okay, welcome back to Tech and 10. Tommy Heffernan here with Precision Microbes. This week we're going to talk about milk feeding and nutrition in the calf. A lot of calf focused Tech and 10s for the next couple of weeks. Off we go, 10 minutes. Okay, so we think about calf health. Who doesn't like a good stool? Three-legged stool. We're thinking about the calf, the environment, and people managing them. They're kind of three key factors. Calf, we're thinking about immunity, health, and milk feeding is really important. Ultimately, when we look at feeding, we can often set our targets. What are we trying to achieve by the weaning period? And we're going to talk a lot more about weaning and beyond because it's becoming a real kind of tricky area. But the targets double birth weight or a little bit more. We want a healthy calf, low disease, mortality. Ultimately, milk feeding is huge. So when we think about calf, what is milk? Okay, it is biological. I heard recently actually this immunological active nutrition. I'll get to that in a bit. But milk ultimately is calves are monogastric for the first weeks of life. So milk's got about 12.5% solids, fat, protein, and lactose. That's important when we think about picking our milk replacer. We want to look for the same kind of quality. Ultimately, during this first weeks of life of the calf, we're never going to get such, I suppose, return from a kilo of dry matter going in solids for a kilo of growth. Ultimately, I think I'm a fan of more milk. I've said it many, many times, but every farm has a different system. A couple of things calves love is they love consistency. Okay, but before I think about that, I want to talk about the seesaw. So we're trying to reduce infectious disease. We want to drive up immunity. We want to drive down the amount of bugs, infection pressure animals are exposed to. We've got to make the link between feeding and immunity. If we want healthy calves, we've got to get nutrition right. So whether you pick once a day after 3 weeks, twice a day or ad lib feeding, we've got to make the link with this. If you're consistently seeing issues with calves, one area to look at of the stool is the calf itself. Environment's another one. And how we manage them, but make the link between immunity and milk feeding. Then we think about consistency, the time, the temperature, the teat even. The teat is a big variable. I think we're using milk bars, etc. And if we're using milk replacer, the osmolality. So if we're going for a higher osmolality of 150 grams to a litre, which is 850 mils of water, consistency is really key. Milk is 125 it's 12.5%. So anytime we're changing osmolality, we've just got to be consistent. It's up to you to find a milk replacer that works, but we're typically looking for a high protein milk replacer, particularly for our dairy replacements, but anything over 22 to 26%, it has to be animal protein. It's getting harder to read the labels. Then we have skim versus whey, whether it clots or doesn't clot. But ultimately, what I find, and I stress, is if you're looking at a milk replacer, quality protein, quality fat that matches the breed. So if we have a smaller crossbred or Jersey, the fat percentage may differ. If we're calving in colder months, it may differ as well because it's an energy source. But ultimately, we want quality animal protein, quality fats going in there, whatever other bits and pieces may be in your milk replacer in relation to lactose, energy, and minerals and vitamins. Also, when we think about milk feeding, one thing I've certainly seen for a successful weaning, when we think about milk step down. I'm going to talk about weaning separately, water concentrates and all those other things, but a slow and steady step down over 2 to 3 weeks. Abrupt weaning in calves doesn't work, and if we're going to feed a little bit more milk, we definitely need to be thinking about slow and steady. When it comes to how much milk should you be feeding in the seasonal calving system, it depends on breed, but some of the targets people talk about is 13 to 15% body weight. What am I seeing on farms are now, most farms are feeding 6 litres. Some farms are going up to 8. Some farms are going up to ad lib feeding. I read a study this morning when I was prepping for this, and there was a meta-analysis looking at all these studies on calf growth rates and milk replacer, and they were suggesting a target of 8 litres across meta-analysis and kind of seasonal systems. That was an interesting benchmark, but pick your own target. Let your calves tell the story. But some key principles in feeding milk, we want to make the link between immunity. We're trying to look, it's a hugely valuable time for the calf. So there's this whole thing of metabolic programming, looking at future lifetime performance. Like the calf in the first 50 days, if it's got enough metabolic energy going in, excess energy is actually put into cellular replication. That's the mammary gland. So up to 50 days, if you've got, this is oversimplification maybe, if you have enough energy going in, mammary cells will actually double in that young calf's mammary gland, which may be one of the key drivers of future lifetime performance. Now, calves will have compensatory growth, getting to their correct weight at calving down or whatever it might be. But I think that's where the future lifetime performance, the early programming of the calf is key. And most of the research will show for higher feeds of milk that you will get better future lifetime performance in heifers. Regardless of that, I think both our heifers, your dairy calves, if we're rearing beef calves even, more milk makes them resilient. Because why? In seasonal systems over the next couple of weeks, we're out of a cold snap. Cold is something that will drop down immunity, put calves under more pressure. I find when calves are on more milk, they're more resilient. You tend to have a more open shed where you're a little bit more forgiving, and not completely now with weather changes, but they're a little bit more forgiving. When disease challenges come, I think a better fed calf is more resilient, no more so than ourselves. You don't want too much cargo on board, but ultimately a little bit more resilient to disease. Again, if we think about colostrum, we've talked about that before. Don't want to forget about transition milk, the first 2 to 8 milkings. And that's where I heard the quote recently, immunological active nutrition. So transition milk, the first couple of milkings after colostrum, is higher in fat and protein. It's full of these bioactives that are both priming the gut development and also, I suppose, future lifetime performance. So it's an energy-rich source. When you're utilizing transition milk in a seasonal system, you have to be mindful of Johne's disease and your risk on farm, because if you're pooling it. But I think it is a resource that some farms, when they tend to use transition milk, they get very positive results. Okay, what else did I miss? This is a big one. One thing we talk about digestive upsets on calves is one, and I get to visit hundreds of farms, I'm quite lucky, and I get to see really effective calf rearing. And one of the areas where I see really healthy calves and good milk feeding in young calves, whether it's in automated feeding systems or, of course, in milk bars, is a good hygiene routine. And the good hygiene routines seem to be after every feeding, which is laborsome. Now, when you're washing equipment, always bring it outside the calf shed, because we want to add extra moisture into the calf shed. But hygiene of feeding equipment is key. Some people are just using cold washing and draining, having the teats down. Some people are going with detergents on a regular basis, or some people are disinfecting them after every time. When we have lots of calves coming in seasonal system, we're always battling the infection pressure. But if we can get consistency on feeding, hygiene, get to our right level of milk feeding. If we are pushing up milk feeding in the early weeks of life, and we want a higher target, the abdomen or stomach of the calf also needs to adapt. So if you're going up to 8 liters, we'll say, in the first 7 days, the calf needs to be at there at about a week. We don't want to do massive changes. Calves don't like dietary changes. So if it gets cold, we can increase milk feeding for a cold snap to give that bit of resilience, but you can't do massive adaptations up and down. I'm looking at the board here. I think there are some of the key things I want to talk about when it comes to feeding. Slow and steady wins the race. We'll talk about weaning from that. It's a very boring message, but consistency. So if we're mixing up milk replacer on farm, that we're doing the same volumes of milk replacer per calf, we're using milk taxis and all sorts of other things now. If we're using automated feeders, I've done another video on that. Again, consistency is absolutely key. Precision microbes, it's coming to that time. Look at it as a tool in calf rearing. It's a unique pro and postbiotic liquid, 30 mils daily. Why? Well, if we're trying to optimize digestion and performance and average daily gain as part of our target up to weaning time, precision microbes plays a key role, because we can talk a lot about the quality of nutrition going in, but that nutrition also needs to be absorbed. So when we optimize digestion and have a healthy gut microbiome, it does aid overall calf health, aside from its benefits on immune function, etc. So 30 mils daily. We're talking about 30 mils for 30 days in seasonal systems, but a lot of people are going right up to weaning and looking at it as a performance product. And just remember, if you get digestive upsets, you can top up with an extra 30 mils. And we now, of course, have HydroStem, our unique liquid electrolyte, next generation electrolyte, which can be fed along to support calves as a tool. And feeding is probably, if you look at the legs of the stool and calf immunological things after colostrum and transition milk feeding is absolutely critical. It's a boring topic because people have heard a lot of it before. This whole area of future lifetime performance by kind of priming the young calf for accelerated growth, I think that's an exciting area, but it's tending to see the results late on. In seasonal systems, we often just want to rear healthy calves, get them weaned, get the cows milk, get them out the grass, and all those other things you want to do in a busy season. But it is worth considering. I'm seeing a trend of more milk feeding. We're pushing calves a little bit more milk. Precision microbes fits in there well. That's Tech and 10 for today. If you have questions or topics you want us to cover, info@precisionmicrobes.com.